Hello. Oh my gosh, my knee. Why does my knee have to be like that? Hi, James. Hi, everybody. Hi, guys. Sorry, I kind of ended up lying to you by accident and telling you that I will do a video today, but then I realized that it makes more sense to do a live actually, because since I'm very not prepared. Hi, Joe. Hi, Luna. Hi, Theo. Hi, James. Yes, you are in fact first. Look at that. But basically, I was supposed to do a video summary of a brief summary of Sunday news. Hi, Tony. But then I realized that I'm absolutely not prepared to do that today because I did not have time. Hi, Jay. I did not have time to organize everything the way that I wanted to be organized for the ease of it. And so it actually makes more sense for me to do a live because that'll take less time out of my day than editing a video and putting it out there. So today we're still going to do the live, but what's going to happen? Hi, Veronica. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Tammy. Hi, Grumpy. Hi, Albert. Hi, Prexis. Hi, Carolyn. But what's going to end up happening in the coming weeks is on Sundays, instead of lives, I'm going to be uploading a brief summary of the news, like 20 to 30 minutes. I thought I would start this Sunday. Hi, Drake. But this Sunday, it would actually take me much more time. Hi, Kathleen. Hi, Jillian. Hi, Charles. Hi, Drake. Hi, Norm. Hi, Groden. Oh, hi. Welcome, Groden. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Keo. Hi, Regents. So basically, let me do a quick rundown. Hi, everybody on Twitter. Hi, everybody on Twitch. Hi, everybody on YouTube and on TikTok. Hi, Peter. Welcome, Groden. Nice to see you here if it's your first live, especially. So normally what we do here is we do a 2-hour, very detailed breakdown of everything that happened on Ukraine in terms of Ukraine in the past 24 hours. And I but I basically go over the context, I go over the geopolitics, and I go over pretty much everything. History, just to give you an idea and an explanation of why things are happening the way they're happening. But recently I've realized, because I do this every day for 2 hours, because I've been doing this every day for about 2 hours 2 hours each day, it basically takes me actually 3.5 hours for the live, because I need to do the thumbnail, I need to get ready, I need to read over the news, I need to figure out what I want to talk about and what I don't, what I consider necessary and what I consider not necessary, because sometimes some of the news are just they make sense to somebody who's Ukrainian, they don't make sense on a larger scale. Some news are just random things of look at this tank shooting at this other tank, and it's just cinematic experiences of of tanks shooting at each other, and I'd rather go on Twitter and find something more interesting than that. So basically it takes me 3.5 to 4 hours really out of my day to just do the news. And that brings me to the point where I don't have a single day a week where I can run errands and do things, because outside of the news, I do interviews, I do editing, I do other things. And so I need a day off, but I don't want to leave you without the news. So what I think, not what I think, but what I came up with is that on Sundays now, that's going to be my day off from lives. I'm not going to be doing lives unless they're random, chatting lives that just sort of that I just kind of felt like I'm bored and wanted to go live. But on Sundays, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do Sunday news briefs, and they're not going to be in the format of a live. They're going to be in the format of «Так, Максим, я розмовляю українською. Я з України народилася і виросла у Львові». So basically, they're not going to be in a format of a live. They're going to be in a format of a video. The video is going to be 20 to 30 minutes. 20 to 30 minutes, and I'm just going to be breaking down everything that I think is important for the day, giving my commentary the same way that I do on lives, but not as not as broad, rather, not as broad, but rather more like condensed. And then we can sort of discuss a few things on Mondays that happened on Sunday that you guys have only seen in the videos. Also, as you know, I'm very responsive in the comments. So if something, like if you have an issue understanding something or you need more information on something, I will be giving, you will be able to do that. And also, YouTube now introduced this new function, which is like, YouTube now introduced this new function, which is like an instant premiere or something like that. And basically, when a video premieres, then you guys can watch it all together at the same time and chat in that while the video is playing. So that's most likely what I'm going to be doing for Sunday. You still can have like a comment section the way that you do now, and you can still like live chat. You can still live chat while the video is playing, and then once the video is done instant premiering, then you can watch it later and just put your comments under like the comment under the comment section. So I think that that's probably the best idea, and that's the closest to a live that I can how I can do this. Also, to whatever Russian bot that is that's asking me how you so rich and refugee together, is because one, I'm not refugee. Two, Ukrainian refugees are not running from poverty. We're not Russian. We're not like you. Okay? We are running from the fact that Russians are sending missiles into our houses. But we're not running from poverty. We actually really like our lives. Oh, I'm refugee, miss? Yes, of course I'm refugee. And an 11-year-old refugee in America, you know? I've been refugee in America for 11 years, right? I was just, I just had a crystal ball in front of me 11 years ago, and I was like, in 2022, Russia gonna attack Ukraine. And so today, 2011, and I need to move. I have to be 11 years ahead of the curve, because in 11 years it's gonna be hard. Lots of people are going to move. So yeah, that's basically what happened. That is my story of how I became a refugee in America. Yeah. Anyways, so without further ado, let's jump into the news. But before that, how is everyone doing? How is everyone's day? First of all, to someone who's saying, hey, drop the accent. You're a lovely person, don't be angry. I'm not being angry. First of all, I'm Eastern European, and that is an Eastern European accent, and I'm mocking an Eastern European accent. While being Eastern European, that's completely appropriate. Two, I'm not angry. That's how I respond to trolls, and that's how I make parodies on trolls. And even if I wanted to be angry, I'm still allowed to be angry, and I can be a good person and be angry at the same time. In case you didn't notice, there is a genocide that's happening in my country. I feel like that gives me enough reason to be angry. So yeah, there is that. Okay, so there is like a lot that happened today, a lot, but a lot of it is really not like insignificant, but sort of like thank you. A lot of it that happened today, a lot of it is not, I wouldn't call it insignificant. That's the wrong word for it. But I would definitely call it I wouldn't call it insignificant. I would call it like, a lot of these events are like small. They're very small. So I'm going to try and Привіт, дуже дякую вам. I'm going to try and condense it into like a more digestible situation, you know? Okay. So, the world's biggest gaming platform for children, Roblox, has removed 2 games that are related to the war in Ukraine, according to BBC. I will talk about the headline news and about the breaking news. It's not necessarily, there is a video attached to it. Actually, yeah, let's do it the same way that I always do it. I will talk about the headline first then. So there is a video that surfaced and it's from Russian propaganda shows. First of all, there are a couple of Russian propagandists that literally fled Russia. There are more and more videos surfacing online of Russian soldiers mocking Vladimir Putin and mocking the military. Another thing is that Russian military is lacking. So at this point, Russian military only supplies Russians with uniforms and stuff like that, right? And like ammo, if you can call it that, to be fair. And now Russia wants to do another round of mobilization, and they don't even have the uniform. So at this point, they're going to be telling their soldiers to go buy their own uniforms, their own shoes, their own uniforms, everything. So obviously they're running out of money. One of the reasons why they can supply them with uniforms is not because obviously there are no uniforms that they can get somewhere in Russia. They just don't have the money to really pay for them to supply those to the soldiers. So basically, that's that. Russian propagandists on national TV have been more and more often noticed kind of like breaking their scenario and breaking their game. And that's something that's very interesting, because if Russian propagandists, the people who are paid the most, the people who are most dedicated to creating this image of Russia, are starting to crack, that's when you know the card house is cracking, and it's cracking really, really fast. So I will play you a video in a second that basically shows you just that. It's a snippet from a Russian propaganda show, one of their like main propaganda shows, and one of the guests, one of the like highly regarded guests on the show, is quite literally cutting off one of the propagandists and tells him, no, like, it's stupid to live in this dream world where we think we can win when you look at the front lines and we know we can't, right? And that's very strong language he's using there. I will show it to you and you will like hear it for yourself. Well, you will hear you will see the subtitles for it and kind of see it for yourself. But another thing that's very interesting is that there have been cases of a couple of Russian propagandists who are not the main ones, so not Solovyov, not Skabeyeva, not Simonyan, fleeing Russia to Israel, which is like destination number one when Russians want to flee Russia. And they're moving, they're kind of running away, they're not sort of, you know, they're not they're like just leaving привет, привет, and they don't look back. And a lot of them also on national TV. This is not the first incident where one of the like highly regarded guests said on national TV, like, oh, stop lying. It's very obvious when you look at the front line that we are in deep shit, you know. Pardon my French, but that's just what it is. And it's kind of interesting to observe that, because this is, again, Russian propagandists are the people specifically paid to do this, are the people who make the most money for it, are the people the most dedicated to it, and are the people who very rarely break their scenario because they're responsible for feeding these lies to Russia. And when you know that these people on the air of national TV are cracking because not even they know that there is no way that they can lie this into a scenario in which it'll seem reasonable, when like the information is obviously showing the opposite, and you can't like twist and turn it anymore to wrap it into a pretty package. That's when you know that things are really, really going down the drain. And I will play you this video right now, because it's not that just he doesn't believe in Russia's victory, right? He says a lot of very interesting things that will really show you an extent to which this man, who's the guest in this propaganda TV show, and who's like some highly regarded Russian someone, you will see the extent to which this man just absolutely does not want to take any shit anymore, and does not want to say whatever it is that he's paid to say. It's honestly, it's truly like wonderful. It's wonderful. Okay.
Запорожская область,
не я сказал, я цитировал.
Когда мы целиком ее типа оставили.
Это сказали в Запорожье, по-моему, это Владимир Рогов говорил, что после того, как оставшиеся территории будут освобождены, там тоже будет проведен.
После того, как оставшиеся территории будут освобождены. Очень тяжело спорить с мечтателями, которые живут вот в таком своем мире, когда будут освобождены. Но я вижу динамику развития боевых действий сейчас на фронте. Но мы не говорим про то, что происходит вокруг Лимана. Ну, не будем говорить. Но, тем не менее, сейчас это просто диковато рассуждать, как мы освободим Запорожье, 710 тысяч жителей, когда мы еще не знаем толком, честно говоря, положа руку на сердце, вот любой из нас, выйдя в гримерку, я думаю, признает, что он не знает, поможет ли мобилизация или нет нам переломить ход боевых действий. Пока все складывается не очень хорошо. Легко говорить, ну, после освобождения Запорожья, вы попробуйте освободить его, учитывая, как все складывается.
So based on like what he's saying, right? He's saying like, oh, everybody's talking this big game of like, oh, but things are gonna turn around. Oh, but things are gonna things are going to look different once we liberate this, once we liberate that. And this man is at this point like just losing his temper, and he's like, you keep saying once we liberate this, once we liberate that, once we do this, once we do that. But first of all, looking at the front lines, we're not going to do that. Second of all, thank you so much, Melissa. Second of all, try doing that. Like genuinely try doing that, because based on what is actually happening at the front right now, it's just simply not going to happen. And that specifically also is that specifically also indicates another very interesting thing, you know, because since Russia did these, thank you so much, these pseudo referendums, these sham referendums, they have been basically they have put themselves into this awkward position where they've annexed territories that they don't even hold. Like the only state in Ukraine that they've annexed that they actually like have almost the entirety of the state under their hold is Kherson, right? And the majority of the other places, like AFU, is taking them back with the speed of light, and they're taking back territories that Russians have held since 2014. So that's the thing where like it's such wishful thinking, where these propagandists are standing there and they're like, dude, I don't like understand how you're planning on doing it, since you don't even have these regions. Я розумію, що ви кажете про імітацію свободи слова. Я не думаю, що це імітація свободи слова. Я думаю, що це вони просто вже, ну, в них вже просто не вистачає брехні. Але, типу, ну, про них ніхто не буде нічого, ну, типу, це не для того, це не для того говорю, щоб показати, що, о, росіяни такі хороші. No, це ж просто карточний будиночок хвалиться. Sorry, sometimes there are Ukrainians coming onto my stream and they write in Ukrainian, so I try to respond in Ukrainian because why not? I know Ukrainian and that's my native language, so why wouldn't I? Anyways, the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Ukraine posted a video from the city of Liman in Donetsk region showing a Ukrainian soldier removing a Russian nameplate from a police department. Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Malyar said earlier that fighting is still ongoing in Liman and its complete liberation will be reported by the General Staff, although we have already put our flag, the Ukrainian blue and yellow flag, onto the sign that says Liman. We have also put blue and yellow flags all over the city, and it's amazing because now they're taking off Russian nameplates. Also, I've said this on earlier lives, but I'm also going to say it again because I think it is a very important thing. And if you haven't heard it, it's going to be good for you to know, because I don't want it to get lost, right? So one of the reasons why Liman is so important for Ukraine to take over, one is because of its strategic location, because of how ingrained into Russia it has been for a while now. It's Donetsk Oblast. And two, it's as I said, strategically super important location. Two, also, I read it to you yesterday. The way that we surrounded Liman, we encircled Russian troops, and we encircled them into like a huge area where there were 5,500 of them that had to surrender. And in 2014, Ukraine has had this event happen that was called the tragedy of Ilovaisk. Ilovaisk is a town in Donetsk region that Russians took over. The way that it was going is August 7th, on my birthday, the Ukrainian troops have come to Ilovaisk, and they were able to actually take it from Russians. And they started putting Ukrainian signs there, and they surrounded the Russian troops that were in the town. Later, they found out that they were also surrounded by the Russian troops on the outside. And so it was kind of like a meat grinder, and the Ukrainian authorities reached out to the Russian authorities and organized for a humanitarian corridor for those troops to leave. So they officially surrendered. And there were like, I want to say maybe 800 troops or 600 troops, and they were all leaving. So they weren't combat ready. They laid down their arms. They were retreating. They were not of any danger. They were not of any, it wasn't a battle. And it was a pre-agreed upon humanitarian corridor. So on the first kilometer of that humanitarian corridor, in 2 convoys and 2 lines that the Ukrainian troops were leaving, everything was okay. And the second that they crossed the mark of the first kilometer, Russians started firing missiles at that humanitarian corridor. And out of 600 to 800 people, 400 of them died. And they describe it as a shooting range where they were the targets. So Russia specifically and on purpose destroyed all of the Ukrainian troops that had already retreated. And that was the great tragedy of Ilovaisk. And Ilovaisk was encircled. And so one of the things that's really ironic is that we encircled Russian troops, much more Russian troops. And we let them go. You know why? Because we are reasonable, real, normal, kind people who just want our territory back, even after everything that Russians have done to us. Even after you see our prisoners of war that come back from Russia and look like they were starved, because they were. So that's the difference between us and them, and that's why this specific situation was so incredibly important for Ukraine. So yeah, that is about that. Wow, look at that. There is a Russian troll that Google translated how to say something in Ukrainian and told me to fuck off. That's so lovely. No, thank you. I don't want to. It's my channel. And if anybody should do that, it's you. Because, here's the thing. You can't block me from my own stream, but I can block you. I know that you probably did not think about that in Russia. I mean, that's a little beyond. It's above your intellectual level, as it seems. Now, that's not an assumption. That's just something that I draw from facts right in front of me. And I don't know how you want me to fuck off if you can't really make me do that, but I can make you do that. So how about you proceed to follow your little Russian worship? Повністю могилізується, та? Могилізується, причому ще зі швидкістю світла. Okay. Gazprom cuts off supplies of Russian gas to Italy. Gazprom released a statement on Saturday saying it had suspended gas flows through Austria to Italy because the Austrian operator had refused to confirm transport nominations. After regulatory changes implemented in Austria in late September, the cut-off appeared to target just Italy, with Austria continuing to receive gas. Gazprom said it is working to resolve the issue with Italian buyers. Enispa, Italy's largest oil company, also said it was reaching out to Gazprom to resolve this issue. The cutoff of Italian gas comes days after underwater eruptions crippled the key Nord Stream gas pipelines connecting Russia with Europe. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine issued a statement in response to Russia's attempts to annex the Ukrainian territory. No, I'm talking to a person on Twitch. The ministry offered the options for partnering states to respond to illegal actions of the Russian Federation for the purpose of protection of internal law and order, including the following: to speed up provisions of the necessary military, economic, and financial assistance to Ukraine, along with introduction of additional harsh sanctions against Russia; to isolate the Russian Federation and its government from the rest of the world. There is no place for them in the international organizations and on the international arena; to recognize Russia as a terrorist state. The ministry also calls for every state to support the initiative on the creation of the special tribunal on the crime of aggression against Ukraine for the purpose of bringing the military and political leadership of Russia to justice. A woman's body was found under the wreckage of a 5-story building in Mykolaiv, hit by Russian missiles on the night of October 1st, reports the main office of State Emergency Service in Mykolaiv region. The Ministry of Defense of Ukraine confirms liberation of 5 settlements near the city of Liman in Donetsk region. The Russians are surrounded. So that was, it's interesting because, see, a lot of news sources still report on Liman as if it's surrounded but not taken over by Ukraine. However, it has been. And it's not just that. Since yesterday, all of the news that I'm getting are very, they're very like, in a very like unconfirmed fashion. Like, oh, Ukrainians have surrounded Russians in Liman. But, you know, stay tuned. And at this point, like, Ukrainians have liberated Liman. There is still some fighting going on there, but there is such an insignificant number of Russians left, and most of them have fled, that there is nothing they can really do to fight it off. And they are either going to be POWs or they're going to forever stay in Liman. And I mean, because they're never going to be able to get out of it. So there is that. Hearing our boys are pressing through Kherson, says someone in comments of TikTok. I'm hearing that too, but those are rumors, and I really don't want to perpetuate them yet, because I feel like if our general staff would want us to know, we would know. And I feel like if it's just rumors and they're so unverified and so vague, it's probably because we shouldn't be talking about it. Oh, also, guys, thank you so much, Jordy. Also, guys, the super long awaited for interview with the Azovstal defender, Tork, part 1 is up on my YouTube channel. It is up in both formats. Format number 1 is English voiceover, and format number 2 is the original language. So if you would like to watch that video, in part 1, Tork talks about nationalism. He talks about what Azov means to him, what Azov is, how Azov was formed, whether Azov are Nazis, what are their beliefs, and whether like specific views are necessary for someone to join Azov, how they train them, and basically what their system is like. And that's the first part of the interview. And the second part of the interview, which is airing this week, this coming week, he's going to be talking about everything that had happened to him in Mariupol when he was defending it. And he's also going to be talking about his journey to Azovstal and everything that happened to him in Azovstal. And then in part 3, we're going to be finding out everything about Russian captivity and what had been happening to him in Russian captivity. And he's going to walk us through all of his tattoos, which he has many, to show you what Russians think Nazi tattoos are and why people in the West think that Azov all have far-right or white supremacy or Nazi tattoos. And you will see he has a lot of tattoos, and he'll walk you through all of them. And he will tell you which tattoos and why they said were Nazi symbolics. But no, this is not going to be live. Part 1 is already live on my channel, as in it's not it's not going to be a live stream, but it's already up on my channel, and it's a 35-minute interview. You can skip the first part. It's divided by chapters. The first part is just me introducing what the video is about, and you can go down and just even watch it by chapters. I wrote out which chapter answers which question. Now, Grodan on YouTube is asking, Yulia, what do you know about the Ukrainian children being kidnapped by Russia? The media doesn't say much. What can be done to get them back? Exchange for prisoners of war? So no, because these are civilian children and they are kidnapped from they're not taken prisoners. You know, you can't really exchange these children for prisoners of war. There need to be like humanitarian, human rights watch involved, and it's a much trickier subject than exchanging prisoners of war. Ukraine does have the list of all of the children, or at least as many children as possible, close to all of them, that have been kidnapped to Russia. Russia is also not trying to hide the numbers of children that they've kidnapped. They really parade it on their national TV, and they talk about where they've brought each one of those children and where they have like situated them and where they have sent them. So there is a lot of records of that. And also now our governors of these states in which from which these children have been kidnapped, obviously because they are not busy governing the region in as large of a capacity as if they were there and the region wasn't occupied, they have the time to kind of they have the time to sort of trace it, right? And they have the time to trace all of this, and they have the time to document all of this. So what I would say is that most likely this is going to have to happen once Ukraine liberates most of its territories and once negotiations begin. Once Putin is going to be begging to sit at the negotiation table, or Russia with whoever might be in power by then, if when they screw up so badly. But it's not going to be the same way. It's not going to be the same as negotiations for. It's not going to be the same as negotiations for prisoners of war. Unfortunately, it's a whole different procedure by a whole different department, and it's much more difficult because these kids have sort of they're not like in a facility. They've been like thrown around Russia, and they've been sort of like adopted into families and stuff. So it's a whole different thing. And while we are working on it, the reason why you don't hear much about it is because there is not a lot of results right now. But rest assured, Ukraine is working on returning these children, because we are not going to just leave them behind. It's just that, first of all, the more we talk about it and the more information we give out, the more chances there are that they're going to bury these children deeper and deeper into Russia, and we're never going to find them. So it's in its own way, it's also OPSEC. Okay. First of all, there is like some there is some troll on Twitch that is telling me that that I should look at Grumpy's Twitter. Honey Bunny, whatever you make up about my moderators, all of my moderators are my friends and I know them very well. Anyways, okay, so there is another person. Okay, so on TikTok, someone's saying they're trafficking kids. Where is the UN? Yes, they are trafficking children. They're not only trafficking children, they're trafficking adults and children both. And where is the UN? Well, the UN is busy, doing nothing and keeping Russia on its Security Council, so Russia can veto every investigation the UN has to do and every resolution that the UN is trying to put forward, because the UN is a joke. Here is another question. Hi, what is the timeline for the Kherson liberation campaign? There is no timeline, really. There is only analysis that we can make based on the weapons that Ukraine has and based on how the battle has been going so far. There is a lot of operational security around the Kherson offensive. It's a very, very sensitive offensive. There is a lot going on the front lines there. First of all, the reason why Kherson is a harder terrain to fight than, let's say, Kharkiv because, so you've seen this like blitz offensive in Kharkiv region where Ukraine took back all of the territories Russia has like captured in 5 months, in 5 days, right? And so everybody's very eager to see when Ukraine takes back Kherson, and everybody's like, oh, come on, like we want to see this. We want Ukraine to liberate Kherson. We want like the armed forces of Ukraine to come into Kherson and stuff like that. Unfortunately, it's not as easy, and it's not the same as Kharkiv was. The terrain in Kherson is very different. Kherson is the south of Ukraine. Kharkiv is the like northeast of Ukraine. So the weather is really different, right? Also, Kherson is a plain. There is lots of steppes, there is lots of fields, there is lots of wheat. So there are not like foresty areas to hide in. The trenches are all exposed. So warfare there by itself, based on the terrain itself, is much harder than warfare in Kharkiv region. We can't really, nobody's going to give a timeline on when Ukraine is going to enter Kherson, the city, right? But there is also Kherson, the whole oblast. And it stretches far beyond Kherson, the city, because Kherson, the city, is kind of like in the beginning of Kherson Oblast, if we're thinking front line, right? It's the closest to front lines. And Ukraine has been making steady progress. Ukraine has been pushing through, and there have been rumors today that Ukraine has made lots of progress, but again, operational security is important, and I don't think we're going to be hearing much until Ukraine takes Chornobaivka back, which would be a huge win. Also, and then we're going to be hearing about the offensive, and then we're most likely going to hear about Kherson like in the next day or so, because Chornobaivka is very close to there, and Chornobaivka is an incredibly important strategic location. But for now, we don't really know. What the timeline for Kherson is. I would say maybe it could be the next 2 weeks. It could be the next 3 weeks. It could be the next. Well, I don't know if it's. You know what? I don't know. I don't want to make that prediction because I like to give you my analysis and my opinion based on like cold hard facts. So if you actually want to hear my opinion and what I think the timeline for Kherson might be, then I will look into it deeper tomorrow, and I can address it tomorrow on my live, and I can give you at the end of the live, and I can give you an explanation as to why I think that way. But for now, I haven't done enough like research into maps and enough research into the past like 48 hours, and did not compare it with the past like week or two to sort of like give you a better understanding than what I just did here. This is just a very superficial like analysis breakdown, and that's all I have for you right now. But I would say within a month, very highly likely. Also, here, the question was, what about Crimea? So Crimea is an even more difficult kind of part of that to address, because Crimea could be at any point starting from this winter to like next summer, right? Crimea is way too far of a target from this point that we can make an accurate prediction that does not range in like a huge timeline, right? It depends on how well the Lend-Lease works, what new weapons we're going to get, how much of the Russian army we're going to destroy, how bad the Russian new conscripts are going to be, what is the amount of those conscripts, right? Because they're useless, but they are just meat that's going to delay progress, right? They're just human cannon fodder. And there is so many different factors. It also depends on how the winter is going to go. It depends on a lot of logistics. Yes. So there is like so many factors that go into that, where we can't accurately predict right now what's going to happen and when we can get Crimea, because we can only do it based on the estimates of today. And today is a very shaky understanding to estimate from, because again, the Lend-Lease just started. And there is going to be a lot more new weapons. Do you think if we take Crimea, it will still be an autonomous republic? Yeah, it will definitely still be an autonomous republic, because ultimately the whole point is that Crimea belongs to Crimean Tatars, right? And Ukraine has always recognized that. Ukraine has always lived hand in hand with Crimean Tatars. Ukraine has always respected Crimean Tatars. Ukraine has always respected Crimean Tatars. Ukraine has always been incredibly, incredibly good to Crimean Tatars. And so it will obviously still be an autonomous Republic of Crimea, because at the end of the day, Crimean Tatars should be able to form their own government and should be able to make their own decisions. And that's just what it is. So yeah. Okay. The Ministry of Defense of Ukraine confirms the liberation of five settlements near the city of Liman. The German Minister of Defense, Christine Lambrecht, paid an unannounced visit to Odessa to meet the Ukrainian Minister of Defense, Alexei Reznikov, reports Die Welt. Lambrecht promised the Iris-T air defense systems will be delivered to Ukraine in the coming days. Mobilization measures are continuing in Russia. A number of military units have been put on alert and relocated closer to the front line, the General Staff reports. In particular, about 2,000 demobilized people arrived at the permanent deployment point of the 810th Separate Marine Brigade in the city of Sevastopol. About 5,000 people arrived in mobilization in the city of Budanovsk, Stavropol territory, in the 205th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade of the 49th Combined Arms Army of the Southern Military District. Combat training for them has now begun. Getting static from my mic. Yeah, it's 1 second, guys. No, I think it's my mic. 1 sec, let me try to do this. Did that fix anything? Did that make it better? Cell phone interference to the microphone. It might be. I can move my cell phone over here, and then there is going to be less interference, I guess. Sorry, there is just some mic issues over on YouTube and Twitch, and I'd like to fix them before I continue, because... Okay. 1 second. Yeah, there we go. This should be better. Should be better. Might be better. Okay. Okay. All right. The Russians attacked the Nikopol and Kryvyi Rih district of the Dnipropetrovsk region with hurricanes, grads, heavy artillery, and kamikaze drones throughout the night, reports the head of the Regional Military Administration, Valentin Reznichenko. As a result of the shelling, private houses, farm buildings, and power lines were damaged. In Kryvyi Rih, a kamikaze drone targeted the building of the local lyceum in the center of the city and destroyed 2 floors. Lyceum is like a private school. The failure of the Russian army in the northern regions of Ukraine and the insufficient defense of the occupied sectors of the front indicate that the preservation of the south is much more important for Putin, so he is ready to sacrifice the Luhansk region. This conclusion was made by specialists from the Institute for the Study of War. Here's the thing. A lot of the Ukrainian natural resources, such as gas, have been discovered particularly from Luhansk region down, and there is more of that in Crimea, and there is more of that in the south than there is in the northeast. So I could see why he'd be ready to sacrifice Luhansk and why he's throwing most of his resources into Kherson and Mariupol and those places. Also the ports, and Russian Navy fleet, Russia's pride and joy, the Russian submarine that they have recently acquired under the name Moskva. All of these things, they're much more important to Putin than keeping Luhansk and Donetsk, which are Luhansk, which are just bordering Russia, right? And that have metallurgy and that have coal mining, and they are basically they are in the middle of a coal basin. But yeah, so I could see, I can understand why, but the thing is that at this point, Oh my gosh. At this point, there is wait a second, there is a Russian troll here. Don't boot it yet. Don't boot it. Don't boot it. Don't boot. Oh, cat, why did you boot it? It asked me if I think that my speeches are gonna change anything, because they've seen me a couple of months ago, and they're wondering whether I'm not tired yet. And I was gonna say, I'm not trying to change anything. I really like how Ukraine's kicking your ass. Why would I want to change anything? I'm not sure. I hope it's not going to change anything, you troll. I really, really, really hope that it's not going to change anything. You know? Putting it on the record, first message in chat logs, Putin sucks and is decidedly a big loser. I'm a crusty anarchist loser. Big up. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, Emin Lotus. But basically all I'm trying to say here is that it makes a lot of sense for him to kind of cling on to the south and not try to cling on to the north as much as he clings on to the south. But it also kind of is a very it's sort of a defeat for him either way, because at this point we have accumulated so many resources in the south, and they're highly trained resources. We also have highly trained Ukrainian reserves. At this point, we canceled mobilization for November because we simply don't need it. We have what we need. And at this point, it's just we're also receiving more weapons. So think about it. If Russia is throwing everything that they have, which is alcoholics with no uniform and with tampons instead of first aid kits, who are drinking and don't know how to utilize a weapon, and they are just body mass onto the front lines. Imagine what Ukraine is throwing onto the front lines in Kherson, because Ukraine is also very, very, very keen on liberating the south. And this counterattack has been planned for a very long time. So whatever Russia is trying to scramble right now, Ukraine was ready for it. Also, Emin Lotus on Twitch is asking, are you in Ukraine right now? If that's cool to ask. I'm not in Ukraine at the moment. I'm in the United States. I've been living in New York for the past 11 years. However, I was born and raised in Ukraine, and my entire family, including my mom, my dad, my aunt, two of my grandmothers, and one of my grandfathers, they all live in Ukraine. Well, and now my mom's dog too. My mom just got a puppy, so now I also have, as she says, your furry little brother, which disturbs me to an abnormal extent. But I guess my furry little brother is in Ukraine too. Are there any numbers out on Russian losses in Liman? Yes, I will. There are numbers on Russian losses in Liman, and I will let you know. I've seen them yesterday, but they are not final, and they're not final, and they're not like fully confirmed yet. But yes, Emin, I have a very close. So Emin on Twitch says, okay, cool. Just wondering how close a connection you have to even direct anecdotal accounts, I have a lot of very direct connection to Ukraine. I also have a direct connection to Ukrainian military, and I do know a lot of, I do spend all of my time literally working on this and analyzing the warfare and analyzing the situation. I also have a lot of background in Ukraine, in Eastern European history in general, and geopolitics and stuff like that. And that's basically what I do daily. So, I mean, stick around and find out. But hi, Jewel. Stick around and find out. You will be able to see how much of a close connection I have and how much I know. But I will say that I do, I better know a lot and I better understand a lot, because I very much do care about it. I'm very much connected to it, and it's my home. And I'm also a Ukrainian citizen, and that's the only citizenship I hold. And also, if you're actually interested in something super exclusive that you're not going to be able to watch anywhere else, I'm not giving any more any more personal information than that, don't worry. But if you're interested in information that you won't really get anywhere else, at least not with like quality English subtitles and voiceover to it, I have just released part 1 of the interview, of my 4-hour interview with a defender of Azovstal steel plant on my YouTube. He is his call name is Tork. He's from Mariupol. He defended Mariupol from day one. Then he defended Azovstal. Thank you so much. Then he defended Azovstal. Then he was in Russian captivity. And then in the summer, he was exchanged during the first batch of exchanges. And so there are 4 parts to the interview. Part 1 had already aired. It aired in 2 formats. One is original language and one is English voiceover. And in the first part, he talks about nationalism, how Azov battalion was formed, whether they're Nazis. He talks about Nazism. He talks about Nazi tattoos and what Russians consider Nazi tattoos. He talks about what Azov is for him and why he decided to serve. In part 2 that's coming out this week, you're going to hear about everything that he had seen and done in Mariupol. His injury, because he had a very traumatic injury, his super traumatic way to Azovstal from central Mariupol with his unit, or rather separated from his unit. You're going to hear about everything that happened once he got to Azovstal and what was going on there. And then in part 3, you're going to hear everything about Russian captivity, and he's going to walk you through all of his tattoos. He's going to tell you what they mean, what they look like, and stuff like that. And he's going to tell you which ones of them Russians considered Nazi tattoos and why. And in part 4, well, surprise. in part 4, surprise, but I will tell you that at the end of part 4, he is addressing Russians that might or might not be watching this video. So there is that. And you can find this video on my YouTube. My YouTube is the same as all of my other social media. So wherever you are, whatever it says right here, that is exactly what my YouTube is. All of my social media is conveniently the same name. So you guys have an easy time finding me. So yeah, there is that. And if you are interested, I can also post a link. I can post a link to that interview here at the end of the stream. Okay. Ministry of Defense of Ukraine said, we thank the Ministry of Defense of Russia for successful cooperation in organizing the Izum 2.0 exercise. Almost all Russian troops deployed to Liman were successfully redeployed either into body bags or into Ukrainian captivity. We have one question for you. Would you like a repeat? See, one of the things I really love about Ukraine is that we maintain a sense of humor through these very dark times. And, you know, I always say I absolutely love Dmytro Kuleba, our foreign minister, because he is fantastic. And the way that he flips off, hi, Walasi, the way that he flips off world leaders in such a like beautiful, elegant fashion is amazing. And the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, if you don't follow their Twitter lately, it's been also one of my favorite things to read when I want entertainment, and I will demonstrate to you why. Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. Here's what they say. Here are some of the tweets of them that I thought were just absolutely the funniest thing ever. So here's what they said. They said, we thank the Ministry of Defense of Russia for successful cooperation in organizing Izum 2.0 exercise. Almost all Russian troops deployed to Liman were successfully redeployed into body bags or into Ukrainian captivity. We have one question for you. Would you like a repeat? And that is an official tweet from an official Ukraine Defense Ministry account. Their Twitter handle is DefenseU. It's pretty amazing. There was another very funny thing. 60,000 Russian soldiers will never be able to learn 60,000 words from the modern dictionary of the Ukrainian language. But those who survive can create a simple text from this book. Не твоя земля. Not your land. Ever notice how you come across somebody once in a while you shouldn't have effed with? That's me. Walt Kowalski. Total combat losses of the enemy from February 24th to October 2nd, 60,110. personnel. Their tweets are fantastic. They're so funny. They're absolutely so incredibly funny. Everything that they say has been priceless now. Also, if you would like to hear something from yours truly, okay, so here's something Emin says on Twitch that I actually want to read, and I will elaborate on it too. The whole talking point of Azov and Ukraine being Nazis or whatever was so ridiculous, considering you'd be hard-pressed to find any military without a strong far-right presence in it, and it's hard to compare the numbers of the one unit or battalion you can point to when the invading leader is using Sudetenland arguments about blood and soil, or Sudetenland, which is what Hitler was doing. But so yes, one of the things that I do want to say is that there are a lot of white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and far-right people in the American military, but we don't call them a neo-Nazi organization, right? Same with Azov. Like, yeah, sure, you're probably going to find crazy people in there, because realistically, the people who are willing to go to their death to defend something and are not scared might be individuals like that. Yes, their founder was a guy who was really not good, and that he had some far-right connections and some far-right beliefs. But he was the founder of this organization, not because he wanted to create a far-right organization, but because he wanted to defend the country. Like, so it had nothing to do with his beliefs or anything like that. It was it was just the fact that he himself was a freaking neo-Nazi, or like a far-right guy, or like not a great guy. But then when his battalion, who were volunteers, proved to be super effective, the Ukrainian military was like, well, guys, you're effective. We really need you in the military, but we cannot have this like shit show. So you either depoliticize and you completely, like this guy goes and all of your members that you can identify who have those beliefs go, or we're not going to make you into a military battalion. And so that's exactly what they did. And now, again, one of the reasons why I filmed that interview with Tork is because all of the interviews that I see that are even available in English translation, they're like botchedly translated through Google, right? Or like they have YouTube generated English subtitles over like Ukrainian or Russian speech, right? And it's hard to understand what these people are even saying, because half of this stuff is not translated correctly. One. Two, the other thing that I see is that most of the interviewers who interview Azovstal defenders, who interview Azov, who interview our soldiers, they interview them from a perspective of a Ukrainian person who already knows all of this stuff and does not need anybody to explain anything to them, right? They're like, oh yes, Azov are heroes. Like, I've been to Mariupol, I've seen everything that happened, right? And two or three, most of the people who interview these soldiers are also like professional journalists, like professional journalists, right? So, so their main objective is to be like, hi, how did you feel when you saw a Russian bomb explode right next to you? Did your entire life flash in front of your eyes? What were the words you thought you would say to your mother if she had appeared in front of you in that moment? And like, my point with these interviews, my point in these interviews were not that. Like, my point was not that. My point was for someone who is from the West to get to know a member of the Azov battalion, their past, what they want to do in the future, what their dreams were like, what their dreams are like now, their reasoning to even join the military, right? Through the lens of somebody who's actually in the Azov battalion, not through the lens of like Russian propaganda or like the Time magazine, who went to Ukraine and was like, inside Ukraine's elite neo-Nazi militia, and filmed some like arbitrary videos of Azov soldiers saluting Slava Ukraini, Slava Nazi, and they were like, look, they're saying Slava Nazi, without any context of the fact that, in Ukraine, Nazi is nacisty, and Nazia is nation. So it's glory to the nation, not glory to some like crazy stuff. And was just like, well, see, tattooed dudes in military uniform are saying Slava Nazi. They are, you know who they are. And the world just like bought it. And so I wanted to do an interview that would, on the contrary, show to you exactly who these guys are, but not just as an organization, but as individuals, you know, as individuals who had their reasoning to join this battalion, who had their reasoning to stand guard in defense of their country. Most of them are young. Most of them joined when they were 18, right? When the invasion just started in 2014. And so, you know, that's what I wanted to show you. And that's what I'm hoping to explore with multiple different interviews with Azovstal heroes from now on. And this Tork interview, I think, is very amazing because it doesn't only answer all of the like basic questions that we have. It does give us a very big perspective into what happened in Mariupol, what happened in Azovstal, how he got to Azovstal, what Russians were doing, how hard that battle was, and everything like that. It gives you an insight into Russian captivity, but more than anything, it also gives you an insight into him as a person, right? Not just a soldier who protects his homeland, but sort of how he became that soldier, because we very often drop that. But that's that. What do I think of Russians who are leaving Russia? That they're cowards and they're rats who are fleeing the sinking ship. That's what I think about Russians. But actually, I don't think about Russians. You know, I don't think about Russians until I see the numbers of combat losses. And then I think about Russians for a second, I smile, and I go back to doing what I was doing. You know, when I stopped thinking about Russians, when I realized that they're cowards who would rather flee and rather fight me on the fact that they're good Russians than actually do something to change their country. And I stopped thinking about them when I realized that they would rather whine about their government until rather whine about their government than change something in it. And yes, you don't have to, Piotr, ask me this again. I do think rats and I do think cowards because you haven't done a single thing until mobilization. And you're not running from Russia because of the war. You're running from Russia because you don't want to die in the war. You didn't give a crap when Ukrainians were dying and while Ukrainians are still dying every day. You give a crap because now you can die. And then you're going to sit in whatever European country you managed to flee to, and you're going to be like, we can't do anything. We've tried, and we can't do anything. And we just can't. Like, it's just not happening. And our regime is so bad, but instead of standing up to it, we just run, and then we complain. Yeah, and then your protests look like, you know, a dude standing there with a piece of paper that says, "Нет войны." And then he gets like beat up by a cop and 15 other dudes, instead of intervening, literally look at it and like, oh, Pasha, look, let's film this so we can put it on TikTok. It's going to get views. That's quite literally what that looks like. Obviously, you can't get freedom in a dictatorship by standing there with a piece of paper. Like, if you expect to go into Red Square with a piece of paper and you think that you are going to overthrow your dictatorship like that, then guys, you need a much bigger reality check than I even thought you do. Because you must know that this is not how things work in the world, right? You must know that when you go out to Red Square with a white piece of paper that says "Нет войны," it's not going to do anything, right? Like, you must know that in order to overthrow a dictatorship, like, you're going to have to get harmed. You're going to have to get scratched, and you're going to have to harm your militia, your policemen, and your regime, right? Like, you can't actually think. Like, you can't actually think that this is going to help you, that the piece of paper is going to help you. You can't actually think that peaceful protests are going to achieve something. Like, you can't, right? Because if you do, then like you really need a much harder reality check than you think you do. Anyways, it's like you want freedom, but you don't want to fight for it. You want freedom, but you don't want to fight for it. Okay, the people who were arrested on, at demonstrations, What did you do as Russian citizens when they were arrested? Did you come out the next day in larger masses with Molotov cocktails ready to overthrow your government, or did you all go and hide in your apartments and decided not to do that because you were scared of getting arrested? Yeah, I thought so. And then you, all of the men, the 300,000 men that have left in the 7 days that the mobilization has started, have you gone and stormed the Kremlin in order to tell them that you don't want to be mobilized and you don't support this war? Or did you just flee into a different country? Because to me and to everybody in the world, it just looks like you fled to a different country. Although, 300,000 men of mobilization age is a good enough number of people to shake shit up. Yeah, it is. I'm not saying that you left during mobilization. I have no idea when you left, Pyotr. You asked me what I think about Russians who are fleeing 7 months into the war. You didn't support the war so much that you decided to flee right when it was about your ass potentially dying on the front lines. Huh. Interesting. Also, again, honey, I don't really think about Russians. And I don't owe you to have respect for you or to think anything good about you. Like, I don't. In fact, this is finally the time in my life where, you know what, I can safely not give a shit about a single Russian and be okay with it. Where I finally don't have to hear from you and your people, oh, hachlushka. Where I finally don't have to hear people telling me that I don't speak Russian properly, or making fun of me, for like saying something wrong in Russian while I'm Ukrainian. What do I think about Ukrainian men who were leaving before the war? I don't support that either. My dad is a Ukrainian man who is in his late 50s and who stayed and who didn't try to leave. And my dad said that he's going to fight if he has to fight. And I love my dad. I don't want my dad to fight. But do I understand that? Yes. Do I not support the couple thousand Ukrainian men that left? Sure. But you know how many Ukrainian men came back from abroad to fight in the war? Research that number. Do you know how many Ukrainian men volunteered to be drafted into the army? You research that number. And then we're going to talk. Yeah, but see, the difference, honey, between Ukrainian men running away from Ukraine and Russian men running away from Russia is that Ukrainian men, besides the fact that they're running away from the draft, they're also running away from missiles. Yeah? Like missiles that are flying into your fucking house? Yeah, that's what they're running away from. What are Russian men running away from? What is the danger? You are in danger that your inaction and your cowardness has put you in, because instead of freaking taking all of those men, including you, Pyotr, and going to the Red Square and actually changing your regime so you don't ever have to go through this bullshit anymore, and so your kids never, ever have to go through this bullshit, you run. And here is another thing, when you are a Russian soldier and you get into Ukrainian captivity, you get fed. You are given cards, and you have a lovely time. And most of these cameras are better than your apartment in Russia. But when you get to Russian captivity as a Ukrainian soldier, you get tortured every day. Oh, changing the regime is not that easy, unfortunately. Oh, I wouldn't know, because we didn't have Putin in 2004 trying to install his proxy government. We didn't have Putin literally installing his proxy government in 2012. And we did not have the Maidan revolution in 2014, where hundreds of people died, literally going against Putin's proxy regime. Yeah, I don't think we know how difficult it is to fight against a dictator government. I wonder, how would we know, Pyotr? I'm done with you. Here's the thing. You guys always have excuses. The problem with Russians is that you always have excuses. You never look for solutions. You always look for reasons. My mom always says, кто ищет, тот всегда найдет. Кто хочет, тот ищет возможности. Кто не хочет, тот ищет причины. And that's literally about Russia. The one who doesn't want to do something looks for reasons. The one who does want to do something looks for opportunities. And that is literally about Russia. And on that note, I'm done. Go live in Israel. Never come back to Russia. Run away from mobilization and then complain to the rest of your days that, oh, poor Russians couldn't do anything while they didn't even try to. And then wonder why people have no respect for you. Bye-bye. Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin welcomed Ukraine's return to Le Mans control. Whew. German Defense Minister Christine Lambrecht had to spend 45 minutes in the bomb shelter of the Odessa hotel where she stayed during her visit to Ukraine. This happened around 1 a.m. Lambrecht told the German press agency that she was startled by an alarm while she was already asleep. The rules-based global order is under pressure like we haven't seen in many, many decades. Richard Marles, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Defense of Australia. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Russia has captured about a fifth of the territory of Ukraine. A successful counter-offensive by the Ukrainian armed forces leaves about 3,000 square kilometers less under Russian control than during the first 5 days of the invasion. CNN analysis of data from the Institute for the Study of War. Zaporizhzhia attacked with S-300 missiles. The invaders fired 4 missiles at the regional center and suburbs. The industrial infrastructure was destroyed as a result of the attack. There were no casualties. Also, guys, if TikTok is blurry for you or something like that, try exiting and entering again. Sometimes it's just a glitch and I can't do anything about it. On my side, it shows all of the service bars and there is not really much that I can do to fix it. Putin went for the exchange of Azov military despite the resistance of the FSB because he really wanted to return Medvedchuk, according to Washington Post. The publication reports, citing Ukrainian intelligence information, that the deal was postponed several times over the course of 2 months of negotiations, but Putin insisted on the exchange. It is significant that Putin decided to exchange his bosom friend and one of his long-term intermediaries in Ukraine, Medvedchuk, for the heroes of Mariupol. In Ukraine, they were very happy about the return of these valiant fighters home, and in Moscow, they were very indignant. The publication quotes the words of a senior representative of the U.S. State Department. Okay, let me reboot TikTok then. I will exit from TikTok. I'll reboot it and I will redo the live because I don't think I can reboot the live just like this. Actually, can I pause live? 1 sec. Pause. How about now? Is it better now? Just let me know. Oh, good night, Faye. Same. Okay, so let me just exit and I will reboot the whole thing. And I will see you guys in like 5 minutes. I get it. I see. I love when like a million people write like, oh no, it's still bad. I'm like, I know 50 of you have done that. I'll reboot. 1 sec. Thank you, Melissa. Sorry, guys. Let me just deal with TikTok really fast. Тут нормально. Yeah, само завжди краще. Let me do this again. I'm just gonna... There we go. Okay. Alrighty. Let me just give, TikTok audience a little bit of time to get here. And in the meanwhile, if you have any questions or if you have anything to say, I have time to read it. and I can answer it briefly before I dive back into the news and blast through it, because it was supposed to be a short live today, and it's looking like it's going to be a long one. Jewel is asking, you got more viewers on TikTok? Yes, I have much more viewers on TikTok. TikTok is my main platform. I have 60,000 audience there. Veep? Що таке Veep? Much better? Okay, cool. All right. А що таке VIP? Ну, я розумію VIP, але це як? Це як? But yeah, so yeah, you let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them while people are coming back to TikTok and while the stream is getting better. Hi, Zelensky updates. And while I'm receiving a ton of Cine motes on TikTok. Okay. Hi. Oh, hi, Kay. Good to see you. Hi, Jed. Oh, that's awesome. You watched it? That's amazing. The next one is going to be much more intense, because it's going to be about about Mariupol and his journey to Azovstal and his injury and stuff like that. And it's a lot. It's really truly a lot, but it's very interesting. Okay, so Alexei Reznikov says, I love cats and I hate cockroaches. Reznikov decided to tame the gepard, or cheetah. It's a tank. On this Twitter account, the head of the Ministry of Defense posted a picture next to the Gepard's self-propelled guns and wrote that he had decided to learn a new profession. I decided to learn a new profession, become a member of the Gepard crew. I love cats and I hate cockroaches, he said. This is him on top of the Gepard. Thank you for subscribing. Kia ora. The IAEA Director General will visit Kyiv and Moscow next week, the agency reports. The occupiers delivered 76 orphans to social rehabilitation centers for minors of the Russian Federation in the Moscow region, the head of the Luhansk Regional Military Administration, Serhiy Haidai. Meanwhile, another 104 children from the Luhansk region who are under supervision in social institutions of the so-called LNR are preparing to be transferred to Russian families. Currently, Ukrainian children are accepted into family groups in 4 regions of Russia. This allows the occupiers to close the gap between generations, especially among the male population, which is growing daily, along with the number of dead soldiers. So that's fun, isn't it? Australia expands sanctions against Russia in response to the illegal annexation of Ukrainian territories. Oh, awesome. I'm so glad that you liked it, Daniel. Putin does not want to recreate the Soviet Union, journalist Vitaly Portnikov. He thinks that instead he seeks to seize the territories of neighboring countries and in fact make them part of the Russian Federation. According to the journalist, the goal of the Russian dictator is the complete annexation of Ukrainian and Belarusian territories to the Russian Federation. I'm not going to debate you, bye. At the same time, Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan should become Russian autonomies in Putin's dreams. I'm not going to give you the time of day or... There is, oh my gosh, there is a person here on Twitch that says Moscow was right for invading. Let's debate it. I'm sorry, I'm not going to give you the time of day, nor am I going to give you the spotlight, so just leave. But yes, so it looks like in Liman, the losses of Russian soldiers are about like 2,000. There are bodies everywhere. And we don't really have like a correct number yet, and we don't really know for sure. Neither do we know enough, but it looks like it's really bad. It's awful. I mean, it's great, but as in like it's a meat grinder. And then here was a question: how many POWs are still in Russia? So it's around 2,500, 800 of which are Azov. around 2,500 people, 800 of which are Azov. But that's just Azovstal. Russian soldiers take out their hatred for their defeat by the armed forces of Ukraine on civilians. They essay women. A new phone conversation between Russian invaders intercepted by Security Service of Ukraine reveals this, and I will play it over here. Рейна москально красивый. Netlin says, I saw when they didn't even give them dog tags to ID them. Yeah, Russian soldiers are heavily undersupplied, and they don't. I'm not surprised if they just don't like generally have dog tags. They have money for that, to be honest. Also, hi, Sando. Okay. Thank you, Kay. Good to see you. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna play this for you. And with that said,
Ты как?
Да, шипя, блядь, второе. Уже фиг знает, кто где.
А что, далеко прорвались? Нет уже?
Да нихера. Если мы пытаемся назад зацепить, там наши, блядь, расстрел. В жопе мы. Вообще, пиздец. Я все уже, у меня, блядь, нервы сдали, нахуй. Я домой хочу, блядь. Я не могу.
Да верю.
Блядь, это вообще пиздец. Дети, блядь, нас никто тут ненавидит. Наши солдаты насилуют этих женщин, блядь. Дебилы.
Наши насилуют тех женщин?
Да.
Вот, сука, говно, блядь.
Ну, здесь не выдержу уже. Сейчас буду пытаться, блядь, домой, блядь, все, нахуй, отпуск отъявить все от меня. Ну, блядь,
давай,
хуй отпустят. Да хуй отпустят, сказали, блядь, либо расстрел, нахуй, либо воюй.
yeah, I know I do have a lot of tabs. If you're on TikTok, you're going to see how many tabs I have open on my computer. And as Prasanto said, all these tabs make me anxious. I know I have a lot of tabs open. But yeah, this is basically, a Russian soldier who is very, very done with the military, with the Russian military in Ukraine, because they're not getting supplies, that everybody hates them, as he said, kids hate them, and that nobody wants them there, and that they are taking out their frustration on just assaying Ukrainian women. Yeah. Fleeing from Liman, the invaders abandoned not only equipment but also trophies obtained in battle. Among them are elite Zhytomyr socks and a woman's comb. So this is like the stuff that Russians steal from Ukrainian households, which is quite hilarious. Because they don't have any of that stuff. And also, Netlin, they weren't talking about vacations. They were talking about vacation leave. It's like отпуск. That means vacation leave is like when you leave the military. It's just a leave. But for them, it's called vacation leave. So they are basically talking about taking that leave and just not coming back to the army. And basically, they're trying to find a way to they're trying to find a way probably to go to Russia and then to flee to I don't know, whatever country still accepts them. Armed forces of Ukraine shot down 5 of 7 Iranian kamikaze drones directed towards the Mykolaiv region. The loss of Liman was a major political setback for Putin, according to British intelligence. The British Ministry of Defense believes that the loss of Liman caused a new wave of criticism against the military leadership of the Russian Federation, since the city is located in the Donetsk region, which the aggressor country tried to annex. British intelligence believes that the further loss of territories illegally occupied by Russia are likely to lead to an increased wave of public criticism, as well as pressure on the high command. Yeah, see, I like that they're not saying it's going to lead to a revolt, it's going to lead to Russians standing up against their government. It's going to lead to a wave of public criticism. 8 months into an invasion where 60,000 soldiers have died. It's going to lead to a wave of public criticism from Russians. A wave of criticism. Let's just take a minute of silence for Russians, for the fact that 7 months into this, when Russia is losing capitally, they are going to criticize their government for the first time. Yeah. So the genocide and all of that stuff, that was okay. That was, that didn't need any critique. But this here is horrendous. Wave of public criticism. I mean, how are they going to handle that? Poland has completed the construction of a wall on the border with Belarus, Stanisław Żarin, the authorized information security officer of the Polish government, said. The protective fence reaches 187 kilometers. Marine soldier Mikhailo Dianov, released from captivity and crippled by the occupiers, told how the Russians mock Ukrainians. So he is the guy with the arm that was severely damaged. They treated us like animals, the Marine recalls. According to Dianov, the prison in Olenivka, where the occupiers keep prisoners, is the real concentration camp. Russians keep prisoners in overcrowded cells, beaten, mocked, and starved to death. And that is very true. Hi, Pakelny. I would say that if you're interested, there is this video on YouTube. It does have the auto-generated subtitles. I can put it in the description of this video on YouTube. Actually, I'll do it right now. And it's the video with Mikhailo Dianov. It's a new interview that just came out the other day. It's really, really good, but it genuinely only has YouTube generated English subtitles. Yeah, it's deformed. It's really deformed. He's missing 4 centimeters of bone, and that's really bad. But this interview is an hour. The interview is an hour, and in this interview, he talks about everything that happened in captivity that he's allowed to talk about. He talks about how they guarded Mariupol. He talks about what they were doing in Azovstal. And he's genuinely a very, very, very interesting guy. And he's very, very interesting to he's very, very interesting to listen to. And I'm going to try to attach this video in the comments. Oh, well, but I haven't been living there for 9+ years. Well, neither have I. I've been living in New York for 11 years, but my entire family lives in Ukraine. The Day of the Territorial Defense of Ukraine is celebrated in Ukraine on the first Sunday of October. Having formed directly during the war, you have become an integral part of the armed forces of Ukraine and a nightmare for the enemy. You took up arms to protect freedom and loved ones. Just yesterday, people of peaceful professions, neighbors, colleagues, and friends, today they are brothers and sisters. Under the slogan, Ready for Resistance, the territorial defense troops of the armed forces of Ukraine proved that Ukrainians are brave, free, and invincible. Valery Zaluzhny, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, said on the day of the General Assembly. The presidents of 9 countries issued a joint statement calling on all NATO members to significantly increase military assistance to Ukraine. The statement speaks on the non-recognition of Russia's attempts to annex parts of Ukrainian territories. The statement was signed by Czech Republic, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, North Macedonia, Montenegro, Poland, Slovakia, and Romania. So, of course, it was Eastern European nations. Who else is going to stand up for us? Well, the UK does stand up for us a lot, and so do some other countries, and so does the US, but not in the way in which, I feel like Eastern European nations, because everybody understands what Russia is and everybody has suffered from it, they are the first to stand up, and they're the first to make a lot of demands for our Sini. No, Sini. Sini. Sinya. Dog. Thank you. Sorry. Did you hear that? Denmark did a lot too, but it's like what I'm trying to say is that in the European Parliament, the first countries that normally stand up, speak up, and demand things are Eastern European nations. Like Poland was pushing for Poland was like really, really, really vocally pushing in every meeting for Ukraine to be for Ukraine's application to be considered into the EU. So far, the only countries that have said that they support Ukraine's accession into NATO have been all Eastern European countries and Canada. So it's like, I'm not saying that other countries are not doing a lot. Oh my gosh, the whole world is helping us and it's amazing. And I'm so grateful. But what I'm trying to say is that the nations that stand up for us first and like very loud and pressure, really, really pressure, are Eastern European nations, and Poland is one of the biggest supporters. In the Kharkiv region, the territory of the dam was cleared and about 650 kilograms of explosives were found. It was found in the village of Veliki Prohody, liberated from invaders. In the event of an explosion, the water could flood all of the nearby communities. Yesterday, Telegram channels showed how the occupiers are burying sea mines in the Kherson region. So it turned out that the invaders buried 24 tons of TNT in the form of mines in order to shoot a victorious video. In it, the tank allegedly destroys the ammunition depot of the armed forces of Ukraine with one shot. What? So this is the video. And Russians wanted to pass this video as their tank destroying an ammunition depot. An ammunition depot, and like this is not what happens when you destroy an ammunition depot, and this is not what happens when you shoot at an ammunition depot from a tank. So they mined this area in Kherson with sea mines to make it look like this is what happened. I mean, I don't know what kind of action movie they live in, but it's a very not realistic one. They are not losing. Really? What are they not losing? They're not losing washing machines on the way out, I will tell you that. But they are losing everything else. Unidentified people tried to spy on the teachings of the armed forces of Ukraine at the German training ground. According to the publication of Business Insider, on the night of September 30th to October 1st, drones were seen over the base in Wildflecken, where the Ukrainian military is training. In general, about a dozen drones flew over the test site. According to the publication, the Russians could have been following the Ukrainian military, but so far this version has not been confirmed. Interesting. Andriy Yermak started his visit to Turkey and met with the management of the Baykar company, according to Office of the President. Hi, Blue Mariner. Yeah, lots of trolls tonight. Who doesn't love trolls? Demonstration against the dictatorship in London. Ukrainians, Belarusians, British, and Iranians are chanting the Russian state is a terrorist.
Russian state is terrorist! Russian state is terrorist! Russian state is terrorist!
Це круто, це дуже-дуже круто. Я також перекладаю. В мене трошки інакша штука тут, але я також намагаюся. Was it Iran? No, this is in London. It's a demonstration against dictatorships, and they're screaming Russian state is terrorist. Denmark, Germany, and Norway will finance the production of 16 new Zuzana 2 155mm self-propelled guns in Slovakia, which will be delivered to Ukraine. IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi said that the organization is doing everything in its power to free Ihor Murashov, General Director of Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant, who was kidnapped by Russia the day before yesterday. Already 12 NATO states expressed their support for Ukraine's membership in the alliance. Particularly, the presidents of these 12 countries have published a joint statement supporting Ukraine's NATO membership and condemning annexation of Ukrainian territory by Russia. We confirm our support of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. We do not recognize the Russian attempts to annex any Ukrainian territory, and we never will. Apart from that, the presidents called for NATO to significantly increase military assistance for Ukraine. The Constitutional Court of the Russian Federation approved the documents on illegal annexation of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson regions of Ukraine, most of which they don't even control. Yeah, I understand your writing. According to the ruling, the Ukrainian Donetsk and Luhansk regions were allegedly included into the Russian Federation as republics, with Russian as state language, while Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions were annexed as separate entities under their current names. Yeah, okay. It's funny because, like, Russia doesn't even control these territories fully. They, in some territories, they don't control like 30% of them, but that's okay, you know. Annex them anyway. We will never have them, but, you know, in our delusional Russian minds and on this piece of paper, we do. Macron promised Zelensky to help Ukraine restore its full sovereignty. The statement of the Élysée Palace. That's interesting. How is he going to do that? Is he going to go into battle himself, and is he going to take up arms and stand on the front lines and restore our sovereignty? Because how is he going to do that? How is he going to do that? Is he going to go have an intimate confrontation with Vladimir Putin, like he has been having, you know, some phone sex with him in the beginning of the invasion? Is he gonna try to do that? Because I don't think it's gonna work. I don't know how he's gonna do that. You know, it's very interesting how he's saying that he's gonna help Ukraine restore its sovereignty. Well, yes, Macron, please. We have the uniforms. We have the arms. You come help us restore. You come. At both Nord Stream gas pipelines, the gas leak has stopped after four almost simultaneous incidents. The ruptures on the Nord Stream natural gas pipeline system under the Baltic Sea have led to what is likely the biggest single release of climate-damaging methane ever recorded, the United Nations Environment Program said. It's terrifying because, you know, Russia is doing all of these crazy things. And you know, we're still not taking the most drastic measures, even though they have at this point polluted the atmosphere and polluted our planet for decades to come. And they have created some irreversible damage for that too. So the last piece of news I have for you here is according to the agreements submitted to the State Duma of the Russian Federation, the borders of the so-called DPR and LPR, as well as the Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions, which the Russian Federation allegedly annexed to itself, will be determined by the borders that existed on the day of their formation and admission into Russia. I think they mean USSR by that. Oh, they mean that these oblasts are gonna be, their borders are gonna be decided based on what Russia actually has annexed at this point. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, that's all of the Russian schizophrenia that I have for you today. That is all. Please don't forget to watch the Tork video, the Tork interview on YouTube. I promise you, you won't regret it. And the next one is going to be even better. And the next one after that, even better. They are coming out this week. And the next parts are coming out this week. This part is already out. And if you don't have time to read English subtitles, you don't have to, because it's voiced over in English and you can just listen to it on the go. And with the new updates, you can put it in your pocket and you can just listen to it while you are on your way to wherever, or you're doing the dishes, or you're cleaning your apartment, or whatever it is that you might want to do. But thank you guys. Unfortunately, I'm not going to stay for the questions because I have 20 minutes before my local grocery store closes and I am starving. But catch me on Twitter. I will be there and I will be retweeting some more Russian schizophrenia as per usual. And if you would like to support me, I do have a Patreon. Patreon is called Spy News Network INTL. And if you are on TikTok, Twitter, or social media, or vertical social medias, then you will be able to find it in my link in bio. And if you are on the horizontal social medias, then you are gonna find it in my about section. Okay, all right, good night. Oh, hi, Raspberry, good to see you. Alrighty, guys, have a good night. Bye-bye.